and start nerding out about research to all of you. I want to begin with a story, as we always do, the story of why these two people here, so that's me here on the left-hand side corner, and down there on the right is Stephen, why we started Lumiere and why we do what we do. So I grew up in a developing country. I grew up in India, in a city in South India called Chennai. And I went to a reasonably strong school, but by no means was it an international school or one that was that sent a lot of people abroad for their undergrad educations. And growing up, I knew very little about research. In fact, I've thought about this a fair bit, and I don't think I knew a single person with a PhD. And if I really looked hard, because I come from a Indian family, I probably could have found someone doing research in medicine or engineering, because those are the most popular areas here in South India. But certainly no one who was doing research in the areas that I was fascinated by, things like politics and economics and international relations and sociology. And so for me, the way that I got to explore those things was through debate. And I did a bunch of competitive debate. And through that, I sort of was able to explore these topics. And I found myself drawn to them and interested in them and wanting to study them further. That's why I ended up applying to a liberal arts education in the US, was lucky enough to get into Harvard, where I did my undergrad degree in economics. But even at Harvard, I spent the first couple of years sort of knocking on the doors of professors, trying to get access to opportunities to do research, only to be told, you're a first-year student, you're a second-year student, what value can you add to our research projects? Thankfully, the summer after my second year of undergrad, I got to participate in a mentored research program where I was paired with a professor from the Harvard Business School. And I got to work with him one-on-one on a research project. And that blew my mind. The fact that I could spend days sort of thinking about the world and how it worked, how to make it better, and that other people would actually care enough to listen and read what I had to say was fascinating to me. And that program really changed the trajectory of my life. I continued doing research through undergrad. I decided to become a professional nerd after that, went straight into graduate school, did my master's degree at Oxford, and I'm now doing my PhD in international development at Oxford as well. So it really put me on this path towards research. But along with that, that summer that I did, the summer after my second year, also changed my trajectory in another way, in that I met this young man you see on the screen with a big grin, the one that's not me, that's Stephen. So he was a classmate of mine from undergrad. And in contrast to me, he came from a legacy of researchers. So his dad is a professor at a business school in the US. And his great-grandfather, Fritz Kahn, whose book you see on the screen, was one of Germany's most prominent philosophers and public intellectuals at the time. In fact, when he had to flee Germany because of the Holocaust and he had to go to the US, the person who wrote the letter that got him into the US was none other than Albert Einstein. So that's the sort of background that Stephen comes from. Research was nothing new to him. But when he did that summer program, what he got out of it that really helped him out was access to mentorship. People who were experienced in the field, that were invested in him, that he could turn to for advice, for inspiration, for support all along the way. And so both of us, there's someone whose background noise I can hear. Would you mind muting yourself, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
So, no worries. So when Stephen and I got talking many years later, we looked back on how much that one research program really had ended up affecting our lives. And we thought back to who we were in high school, those sort of nerdy 16 and 17-year-olds who were full of intellectual energy without knowing where to send it and direct it, and how much we would have loved to have an opportunity like this when we were in high school. So that's the genesis of the Lumiere Research Scholar Program. It is a selective one-on-one research program for high school students from around the world. We've now had over 800 students from 30 different countries do the program, and I'm excited to announce that now that Ivy Day is behind us, that we've now had students get into 7 of the 8 Ivy League universities, into Stanford, into UC Berkeley, into Oxford, and Cambridge. And so we're very, very proud of our alumni and the things that they've gone on to do. So I'm going to come back to Lumiere and talk about it in a second. But now that I've spent so much time talking about myself and seeming like an egoistical maniac, I want to hear about you guys. And I want to hear about what areas are you interested in doing research in. So this can be as specific as saying, you know, I'm interested in doing research in how gene editing technology can be used to prevent cancer. It can also be as broad as saying, I'm interested in doing research in history. But just imagine that I am holding a gun to your head and saying, you have to do research right now. What would you choose to do research in? And you can put it in the chat for people to see. I see a neurobiology, super cool. And if you're a parent, then what do you imagine your child will do, or what you do? We're happy to consider parents as research interests as well. I see mathematics, I see a neuroscience and artificial intelligence, astrophysics. Thank you, guys. The others as well. I would use CS to solve the mysteries of prime numbers. Super interesting. Artificial intelligence, chemistry and medicine, mechanical engineering, behavioral sciences. I see molecular science, psychology, super, super interesting interests. I see an economics, that's close to my heart. Forensic science, that is the first. I haven't seen someone express an interest in forensic science before. But you guys are probably thinking, and it's very reasonable to think, we're talking about things that are as different as forensic science, astrophysics, machine learning, development economics, neuropsychology. Like, these are vastly different fields. What does the term research even mean when we're talking about things that are so different to each other? And this is something that we at Lumiere have thought about very, very hard over the years that we've done this program. And we've come to the conclusion that research is a process of creating a tiny piece of human knowledge about the world. And the process begins with curiosity. So if you're thinking, I don't have an answer to this question, I don't know what I'd do research in, I'd say, what do you find yourself thinking about? What do you see in your own body, in the world around you, in outer space, in the news, wherever it is, that makes you go, I don't quite get that. Like, there's something about it that I don't understand. That's the root from where I'd say then start digging deeper. Read up whatever you can find on the internet, in articles about it, and find out what you know about that topic. And by finding out what we as a human society know about a particular topic, you'll then be able to define what we don't know. And that's called creating a research question, which forms the basis for your paper. You then do your own analysis, and try to find out the answer to that question, and then write up that answer in the form of a research paper that you get out into the world. So that process to go from curiosity and exploration to analysis and then writing is what the process of research involves. And I think that third step, the idea of analysis, is where people get stuck. And the reason for that is because when people think about research, the most predominant image in their heads is of lab-based research. So that's the first type of research. And it's a super important type of research. It's a form of research that's important in any field where you need to run a controlled experiment in a specific setting. So in medicine, biology, chemistry, psychology, lab-based research is essential. However, and this is a big however, as a high school student, your ability to do lab-based research is unfortunately quite limited, both because you don't have access to these labs very often, it's quite hard to get access to them, and because even if you did have access to the lab, you might not know how to use the equipment or be familiar with that. And so I want to draw your attention to 3 other types of research that I think are super commonly used by even the most prominent of researchers and are things that you could do from the comfort of your own homes. So one option is quantitative research. When I say the word quantitative, what kind of data do you guys think quantitative researchers use? Feel free to unmute yourselves and share or put it in the chat.
Statistics.
That's a good answer. What are statistics based on?
Just lots of data, or like
what kind of data though?
Information from, it could be information from surveys, questionnaires, or
say I send out a survey asking, tell me, and in the survey I say, write a 500-word answer about why you like your country. Is that a survey on which you could get statistics out of? I'd say not really. So it's a specific kind of data that gets used in quantitative research. Yep. Salomon, am I saying your name right? Gets it exactly right, which is the root of quantitative research is numerical data. And numerical data is now all around us. We have, you have government censuses that make use of, that have information on every single person in the country, their income, their family size, things like that. You have genetic data sets, which has information about genes and the kinds of characteristics that they're associated with. You have data from the Hubble Space Telescope, which is astronomical data and astrophysical data. You could collect your own data, as Egamon said, where you send out a survey and ask people numerical questions on a scale of 1 to 10. How happy are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how proud are you of your country? And the idea of what quantitative researchers do is that they take this numerical data and then they use statistical programming languages like R or Python or Excel or Stata to try and find patterns within that data. They try and see how does a variable change over time? How are two variables associated with each other? And that kind of quantitative research is super useful in physics, chemistry, biology, but also in a number of the social sciences like economics and business. And the nice thing about quantitative research is that with a little bit of training, that's something you can do from your own computer. The flip side of quantitative research is qualitative research. Now, I know that this is a STEM-focused audience, but if you were to push yourselves and think about what type of data might qualitative researchers be using, what do you think are some examples of what they might use?
Should I say
Yeah,
something
go for
again?
it. Yes, thank you for being so thoughtful and asking before going. Yes, please.
So like a survey and questionnaire is not very high in terms of reliability, and people can, I mean, an interview, something like an interview would probably be more qualitative.
An interview is qualitative. A survey can be qualitative if it asks for responses in words rather than numbers. What are some others? Observations, absolutely. Anthropologists, for example, use observations where they look at the world around them and try and observe what's happening and write a paper based on that. Salman has another awesome one, textual or visual data. So textual data like government archives or historical records, newspapers, all of that are qualitative resources. Visual data is really cool. So art pictures, for example, or posters, advertisements, all of these are forms of data that can be used by qualitative researchers, but they're doing the exact same thing. They're looking through all of these different forms of data and trying to identify patterns within that data, which helps them understand how society functions and how people operate. So that's quantitative research and qualitative research. Qualitative research is used less in the sciences, but it's used in history, sociology, economics, business, and to some extent, even in psychology, where, for example, you do in-depth interviews with people about their experiences. The final one that I want to bring your attention to is a systematic literature review. When you and I say literature, we mean like Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare. When researchers say literature, they mean past academic work in that field. So papers, books, reports that have been written in that field. And what a literature review does is you write a paper that says, okay, here are the different perspectives that exist, and here's where I fall in these observations. And so that's a type of research. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me? Yes, did you guys lose me for a second?
Yeah, the internet connection was lost.
You somewhat undulated and came back. You're back now. So we're good.
Got it. I am back. I was telling you guys about literature reviews and how it's about synthesizing the views of different papers that have already been written in the field and presenting it to the reader in a way that is digestible and understandable, but that provides your own perspective as well. And the reason that I wanted to take you through all of this was because I think people come into the world of research with very different conceptions of what research is and whether or not it's possible to do research as a high school student. And I wanted to get us all on the same page about what we mean by research and what the types of methods that you could use as a high school student are to do research in the context of a virtual program. We're now going to go into talking about why you might want to do research in high school. But before that, I wanted to see if you had any questions about any of this, because I know that this was a lot of really academic material to throw at you. And I was curious if there was anything that was unclear. Awesome. So why is research important? We've talked about some reasons why research is important, because it helps us understand the world better and make it a better place, because it's fun and because it helps you learn more about yourself and about these academic fields. But I also know that there are a lot of things that are fun, a lot of things that are useful that you could be doing in high school, and your time is limited. And one thing that's on a lot of your minds is applications to universities, particularly applications to universities in top universities in the world. And I want to talk about specifically why research is important from that perspective. And I think there are three reasons for that. The first is that top universities, particularly in the States and the UK, really value academic excellence. And I think it's possible for anyone to say they're interested in history, they're interested in medicine. It's quite rare for someone to point to a 15, 20-page research paper that they wrote of their own initiative outside of the school system with a mentor who's incredibly knowledgeable in the field. So that, I think, really helps set you apart and demonstrate that this is an area that you're excited by and that you are capable in. A second reason is that you get to, especially in a mentored program like Lumiere, work with a top researcher. And this is someone who you can look up to, who you can turn to with questions about the field, about their experience, about the university they're at. And down the line, if you build a good relationship with them, you might even be able to ask them for a recommendation letter for when you apply to universities. Finally, I think that research helps you demonstrate university readiness. This is something not a lot of people think about, but if you've ever spoken to someone who's applied to university, especially in the US and the UK, one of the things that stands out is just the number of essays that you need to write, the Common App, the UCAS, the supplemental essays. And I think research is a really cool experience that forces you to confront challenges and overcome them, which can demonstrate that you are capable of taking on the challenges of a university education and make for really compelling essays as well. So for example, you might enter research feeling imposter syndrome and being nervous, and you might learn how to overcome that. You might come in with a dreadful procrastination habit and learn how to manage your time and write a paper. You might come in with a sense of finding it hard to build a relationship with a supervisor, but over the course of 9 weeks, develop that ability and improve in that. And I think all of those are things that you're able to use. Thanks, Christian. We'll send over the brochure as well. Thank you for coming. That really can make for incredible stories, but also things that demonstrate to universities that, hey, this is someone who is mature, who is able to confront problems, who's able to work with others, and therefore is someone who's ready for a university education. And so if that appealed to you, I want to tell you a bit more about what Lumiere is and what we do with the context of trying to help you understand whether or not this is a good opportunity for you. So as I mentioned, we're a selective research program that runs through the year. We have had over 800 students now do the program from more than 30 different countries. We've given out over $50,000 in aid and are hoping to increase that number to 80,000 in this year. In terms of what we do, we run 4 cohorts over the course of the year. Our summer cohort is coming up in June. That tends to be our most popular, but we also have a fall cohort in September, a winter cohort in December, and a spring cohort in March. Anyone who's interested in applying applies through an online written application. We then interview students, and if they get accepted, they get matched with a mentor. And our mentors are all current PhD candidates or postdocs at top research universities in the US and in the UK. You then kick the program off. And once you kick the program off, you're meeting with your mentor one-on-one once a week and going from, in the first few weeks, exploring the topic area to then picking a research question and then writing a research paper. And the mentor is serving as your guide or supervisor. So in the first few weeks, your mentor is assigning you papers to read or tasks to do with the goal of helping you explore the area that you're interested in and narrow down to a specific question. They then help you choose a good question. If you're curious about multiple things, they can help you sharpen that. And then they guide you in the process of writing the paper. So what that means is you've got to do the hard work of writing the paper. We expect you to be putting in 6 to 8 hours of work a week, but the mentor is there to provide support along the way, to point you in the right direction, to give you feedback, to help you structure your time. And at the end of the program, you complete your paper, which is about 5,000 words long, which is 15 to 20 pages. At the end of it, you turn it in, your mentor writes you an evaluation. We have a graduation ceremony where we celebrate you. Our graduation ceremony for the winter cohort is coming up in a week, which we're very excited about. And then we send you off into the world. So that's the program. We've had students do this in pretty much any field you can imagine, ranging from astrophysics and genetics and psychology and machine learning, which tend to be our most popular areas, all the way to Russian cultural studies and art history and gender studies and some of the most esoteric topics that you might be able to imagine. And as I mentioned, our mentors come selectively from top research universities in the US and the UK. And I do want to flag one thing here, which is we specifically have mentors who are either current PhD candidates or postdocs. And that's for a reason, which is we found that high school students really don't enjoy or resonate with being put in front of a 70-year-old professor with whom they have nothing in common and being told, hey, do research with this person. In contrast, we found that someone at this level of experience is actually the ideal mentor because they are far enough in the field to be an expert in it and be able to guide a high school student in the area, while also being close enough to the student to remember what it was like to do research for the first time, to be able to connect with and resonate with a high school student and be able to build a relationship that makes for really strong papers at the end of it, but also the ability to know the person well enough to write an evaluation or give them feedback that actually helps them with their next steps. So that's sort of who our mentors are. I'm now going to gloat about some of our alumni. But before I do that, I wanted to give you guys another chance to just check in and see if there were any questions. We're going to be coming to the 3 different programs we offer and their costs after this. If there are any questions related to costs and financial aid, we can talk about that in a second. But anything about the process of the program, the application, the interview, anything at all? Perfect. So I just want to take you through, yes, go ahead, Dila.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask what we were going to be demanded during the interview.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the application process and the interview is looking for 3 things broadly. The first thing we're looking for is, have you thought about what area you want to do research in? So the hardest student for us to accept and to match is someone who comes in super undecided and is saying, I'm interested in physics and also music and also English, because I can promise you we don't have a mentor who's an expert in physics and English and music. So make life easy for us and for yourself by thinking about what is the area that I want to do research in for the next 3 months, and having that area in mind. If you're undecided between 2 areas, that's okay. Let us know that and say, I'll be open to working with a mentor in either of these areas. But being sort of split in many different directions makes it quite hard for us. That's the first thing. What area are you interested in? And this doesn't have to be, and just to clarify, this doesn't have to be like the specific topic. So you don't have to say, I'm interested in studying this particular disease and this particular species of flies. All you have to say is, I'm interested in animal biology, or I'm interested in psychology, or I'm interested in astrophysics, and we'll be able to match you with a mentor in that area. The second thing we're looking for is you being able to demonstrate that you have engaged meaningfully with that field. So this doesn't mean you have to have done research in the field, but if you're able to point to classes you've taken at school, online programs you've done, videos you've watched, books you've read, articles you've read, any of these are suitable as a way of demonstrating that this is something that I actually really care about and something that I know enough about to not be lost when the program starts. The third thing we're looking for are students who have a strong work ethic and drive. This is a program that will require your effort. And crucially, it requires independent effort, because while the mentor is there to guide and support you, this is not a tutoring center or a classroom setting where they'll be hand-holding your step through every word of the paper. So you are expected to go away and do the hard work of reading, of writing, of thinking, and coming back to the mentor and going, hey, this is what I need help with, this is what I need feedback with. And if those three things describe you, I think you would make for a really strong candidate. And that's exactly what we're looking for in the interview as well. We're not going to ask you, what is the, what is this specific gene look like, and how do you use it? We're not looking for like technical questions that are trying to trip you up. We're trying to identify people who would be a good fit for the program, and we're looking for it on these three different criteria. Does that answer your question? Awesome, that was a good question. Any other questions? Fabulous. So I just want to take you through 3 examples of students that have done the program that I think are interesting to think about, both from a perspective of what you do during the program and what you do after the program. So this is an example of a student named Ria who joined us from Hong Kong, and she was interested in physics. She had done a summer school in physics before. She was in the IB and was planning to write an extended essay in physics as well. But what she wanted really was to dig into the field in her 11th grade and have the opportunity to create something that she could be proud of. So she applied to Lumiere and was matched with a mentor from Yale named Sana. And she worked with Sana on a research paper that looked at different theories of the origin of the solar system. And by comparing those different theories, she wrote a paper that put forth what her argument was for this. And I think it was a really interesting paper, and one that definitely demonstrated her expertise and engagement in the field. But what's really interesting is what she did after that paper. So she, while writing the paper, also converted it into a series of blog posts that she published on her personal blog. And she started an academic honors society at her school, a club where she tried to take what she learned from the program and pass it on to younger students as well as people in her own grade. So the idea was that by doing research, she was not only learning and creating knowledge, but also sharing it out with others, which I think is a really cool thing to see. And all of this ended up paying out and paying off, and she's now headed to Penn in the fall. She got in there early. Yasim, I saw you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I wondered if we're on the right page because we're not seeing the student's picture, if that was intended.
I don't. Yeah. So the student's picture I unfortunately don't have on the slide. Okay. I can send this over to you, but this is a set of images that demonstrates who she is. This is an example of another student who joined us from Maine. Her name is Elena. And she, in comparison, was not as deeply into her field as Ria was. So Elena was interested in biology, had taken some biology at school, but had only done one thing in the field, which was shadow a doctor. And so what she did with the Lumiere project was dive deep into the question of T blood cells and something about how they prevent and how they interact with cancer and can be effectively used to prevent cancer. You can clearly tell that the last time I took a biology class was in 10th grade. So not the best person to be explaining this to you guys, but what she managed to do through that project was show to universities that, hey, this is something that I care deeply enough about to spend so much time doing research and then writing it up, and she sent it to universities as well. And she's going to be headed to Cornell in the fall, and this was one of her primary extracurriculars when she applied. And then finally, Avni here, I do have a picture of her, is from Mumbai, and she did a really cool project. So she was interested in the social sciences, and she did a paper. She comes from Mumbai, as I mentioned, and she analyzed policy documents of the Bombay city government that had to do with their urban disaster management policies. So basically, she was looking at these government policy documents, try and understand if disaster struck Mumbai, an earthquake, a tsunami, something like that, how does the government's response take into account the needs of informal workers like fruit sellers, hawkers, vendors? And she made the very compelling argument that actually the policies were not designed to protect the most vulnerable people in these cities. And so that was a paper that brought together and sustainable development and the environment, public policy and economics, and of course, a keen desire and interest in social justice. And Avni is an absolute superstar. She is now struggling to make the decision between Yale, Princeton, and Stanford for university, and so a bit spoiled for choice right now. So those are just 3 examples of more than 800 students who've done the program, and we're proud of all of our alumni, and I could spend ages talking about them. And they've all gone through one of these 3 programs. So the individual research program is the one that I've talked about so far, which is the 12-week program with 9 meetings with the mentor, as well as writing coaches and workshops. The second option is the premium research and publication program. The main difference here is that we have publication specialists who will help you identify a high school or college level journal and submit to it. Of course, the journals that we help you submit to are selective, which means that whether or not you get published is not in our hands. Usually after submitting to the journal, that they can take anywhere between 1 to 3 months to get back. If they accept you, then we pop the metaphorical champagne or the non-alcoholic champagne and celebrate with you guys. If they reject you, we help you identify a backup journal and submit to that. And if they come back with a revise and resubmit, then we help you make the edits and resubmit to that journal. So the idea is that we're trying to set you up for success in the process and help you understand what the publication process involves. And finally, the fellowship is for students who are really invested in research and excited about it. It involves up to 30 meetings with the mentor. And the 2 main differences are that in terms of the output, you have to do some sort of original data analysis. A literature review wouldn't be accepted in the fellowship. And you must submit it to a highly selective journal or competition. So something like the Regeneron Science Fair or a college level journal would be appropriate for this. So those are our 3 programs. We do offer need-based financial aid, but it is need-based. So that would be for families who are earning in the developed world context, and you can see this information on our application. Families that are earning less than $35,000 per annum, and it is also competitive. So what that means is that we have a generous but limited pool of financial aid, and we get incredibly talented students applying for this, and so we have to make very hard decisions about who gets aid and who doesn't. But if that's something that's important for you, you can apply for it in the general application form and ask you questions about your family's background and how much aid you need, and we can take it into account there. So that's who we are, and that's what we do. Our deadline for the summer is coming up. There's a deadline coming up on April 17th. And if you miss that, you've got a deadline on May 15th, but it gets more selective the closer to the summer it gets. So I'd encourage you to apply in the next 2 weeks if you're interested. If you don't think the summer cohort is right for you, we do have the fall, winter, and spring cohorts as well. Applications for that have not opened yet. They'll open over the summer, and so you can keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm actually going to put my personal email in the chat. So that's dhruva.pat@lumiere.education. We'll send out this brochure as well to everyone who attended. And I'm going to pause and pass it over to you guys and to Yesim for questions. But I just want to say, when just returning to what we began the session with, research really has shaped who Stephen and I are as humans and as people and as academics and changed the trajectories of our lives. And we hope that at least for some of you, that it'll do the same and that you get the opportunity to do that with Lumiere. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing these slides and the floor is yours.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. And at the risk of sounding like a teacher, this is part of college readiness, guys. So turn on your videos and speak up. And if you need to ask it in Turkish, I'll be happy to help.
Aral?
Yeah, hi. First of all, great presentation.
Thank you.
And I just wondered if there's any statistics about the acceptance rate of this the program.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's not something that I'd be able to answer because genuinely it's not something that we focus on. So I know that there are universities that are very proud of the fact that they kick out a lot of candidates. What we are looking for are, is the student a good fit for the program? Do we have a mentor who's a good fit for them? And that rate of what your likelihood of application is changes based on which cohort, which application deadline, which field you're applying for. So it's really not an informative number for you to worry about. And I'd say put in the application, give it your best shot, and leave the decision to us about whether or not you'd be a good fit.
Thank you.
Egemen, do you have a question?
Yes. Well, where can we look at the specific fields that we can apply for? I might have missed this. I don't know.
Yeah, so we have a pool, as I mentioned in the presentation, of more than 500 mentors. So I'd say begin with what you're interested in. I don't do it the other way around of saying, okay, what does Lumiere have? And I'm going to apply to one of them. Begin with, okay, if the world were my oyster, what would I do research in? And then ideally, we'll be able to find you a mentor in exactly that field. If not, we'll try and find you a mentor in an associated field. But that's how I would do it. There is a set of topics just to get your sort of brain fired up on the website, but we have mentors in way more areas than that as well.
Great. It's nice that you're flexible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah.
There's got to be some more. Any? Was anybody thinking about doing research prior to this and looking into doing so? And Aydin, you can just jump in with your question.
Oh, okay. So my question is that, like, since a lot of us are like from like other countries, how does the research process happen?
Yeah, good question. So it's a fully virtual program. And that's, I think, one of the big strengths of the program, because it means that your cohort of students is from all across the world, and you're matched with mentors who are top universities in the US and the UK. So that is how it functions, is all of the meetings are online, your workshops are in groups online, and your research tends to fall into one of those three categories that we mentioned of quantitative, qualitative, theoretical or literature review research, because that can all be done in a virtual setting as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Ipek, over to you.
I was curious about the financial aid part. You said generous but limited. How much is it limited? So I was interested in the details.
The family income. Give me just one second. I'm going to try and convert this to Turkish currency and let you know. So in the developing world context, I'd say the cutoff, sorry, give me 1 second. It's in the range of about 300,000 Turkish lira per annum. So that would be what qualifies you for significant amounts of financial aid. So that's basically the standard we set. And just to give you context, here are some examples of some of the students who've done the program in full financial aid. I had one student who I was interviewing, and I was blown away because he was talking about all of the birds that he sees in around him and how their brains function, and what that means about their neural pathways. And I was like, great, this is all awesome, but just can you pause for a second and turn your video on? And he goes, actually, my computer at home doesn't have a webcam. So that was when I was just like sort of blown away by the context in which he was coming from, rural India, incredibly brilliant, but lacking in resources. We have another student who joined us through a partner named Amala Education. And he's actually, he lives in Kakuma camp, which is a refugee camp in Kenya. So those are the examples of not all students are at quite that level, but I think our goal with financial aid is to try and reach students who would have few other opportunities, and that's the sort of context that we think about aid from. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good job keeping the dialogue going, though.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Any questions from the parents? Yes, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, Dhruva. That was
Of course.
informative. My question is that with the application deadlines and program slide that you shared, it seems that we are only there for the summer cohort and the regular admissions for April 17th. Am I right?
So the next upcoming cohort is the summer cohort. The deadline, there are 2 deadlines for that. Ideally, you'd apply by April 17th because we'll then evaluate the applications and get you a decision by the end of April. If you miss that, we'll do another round of evaluations in mid-May. If the summer isn't right for you, we also have future cohorts in the fall, winter, and spring. We just haven't announced the dates or opened applications for that yet. So you'd keep an eye out on our website for the next couple of months, and you could apply to those then.
No, actually, I was just thinking about the summer thing. So when once we apply to you by, let's say, the last one, the May 15th is the last date for admissions. And then how does the procedure goes?
Then good question. So basically the weekend after that will be interviews. So we'll do interviews over the course of that week and that weekend. And then we will aim to get a decision to you by 2 weeks after the deadline.
Mm-hmm. And then the program starts by
in the second week of June.
Second week of June. Yeah, so it's enough time.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Good.
I hope you're doing well and thank you for the presentation. I unfortunately cannot open my camera because I think there's something wrong with it. It just looks like
no worries.
this.
Could you say your name, please?
That I think it's writing. It's Defna.
Defna, nice to meet you. Because I couldn't see you on screen, I wasn't able to identify the voice. So yes, Defna, go ahead.
What I was wondering was I am an IB student, and we have extended essays and IA. So do you think this research program will help with that as well?
Yeah, yes, I think actually I'd love to have you pitch in on this as well. But from my experience, the majority of students who've done Lumiere from outside the US are IB students. And I think that's actually speaks a lot because in my mind, the IB is awesome. It really helps prepare you for research and primes you to do things like this. But doing a research project of this kind outside of the IB curriculum has 3 advantages. One is, of course, it helps prepare you for the extended essay and to do better on it, because having done something like this in 11th grade or the summer before 12th, I think means that even if you don't do the same or a similar topic, at least you know what it's like to write a paper, you know what it's like to work with a mentor. The second thing is I find that schools can sometimes be restrictive about what fields they allow students to do the IB in, or the IB itself has very specific requirements around what that EE looks like. And so Lumiere could be an opportunity for you to explore beyond that and try and do something else. And third and finally, from a college applications perspective, every IB student applying to university will have done an extended essay. This demonstrates initiative and involvement and engagement beyond that, that shows that you are taking sort of the interest that you have and pushing beyond what your school offers to do something new and of your own. So that's how I think about it. But yes, you're the college application expert.
Well, no, I would second everything you said. And furthermore, everybody who got into Ivy League schools this year, not that they're the best, but, being, highly selective has done a research in the last year. I can validate that for you. There's definitely a very strong correlation.
Thank you both so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I knew that the students who had done research did well because we're hearing back from our alumni, but I didn't realize that the correlation was that strong. So thank you for sharing that.
I mean, whereas we're a 7-person practice, so a lot of students, couple high schools and definitely able to see a correlation. Yeah, this is really key, because colleges look for students who are extremely focused in their area of expressed interest, which is what we've been talking about. So the highest level you can achieve is to actually do in-depth research in that topic. It really shows your commitment, and there's definitely good validation of that. Of course, you're not doing this just to do research because you're going to get into a good school. So you're doing it because you're genuinely interested in the top subject, but that goes without saying. So it looks like those might be all the questions we have. Do you have any questions for the audience?
Honestly, only that when I visit Turkey that you guys will show me around. I think I was telling Yasim about this, which is I've been to Turkey once. It was for a debating competition in Antalya, and on the way back, I spent 8 hours in the Istanbul airport. And for some reason, it did not occur to me that I could leave the airport and see the city. And that is one of the biggest regrets of my life. And I really, really want to come back and see the country. So hopefully sometime soon. But in the meantime, do take a look at our website and brochure and apply. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you all for coming.
And lastly, do follow Admittance Education on Instagram so you can hear about more, wonderful and super useful events like this one. Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Yeah.